Laura lay beside me, wrapped in the blankets, her back turned as always. Her breathing was steady, slow, peaceful, as if she had no idea the storm raging inside me, or maybe she knew, maybe she just didn't care. It had been months since she touched me, not just intimately at all. No more soft kisses in the morning, no more playful nudges as we cooked together, no more pulling me close before drifting off to sleep. Nothing. At first, I convinced myself it was stress. Work was exhausting. It was just a rough patch, it would pass. But how long does a phase last before it becomes a new reality? Before a husband stops feeling like a husband and starts feeling like nothing more than a roommate? I turned my head slightly, catching the faint glow of her phone screen from beneath. The covers, she was awake, texting, but not with me. And something inside me snapped. I had spent too long waiting for things to change. Too long making excuses for the way she brushed me aside, but I wasn't going to do it anymore. I was done. That morning, I made a decision, one that would change everything. One that would leave her reeling. Looking back, I should have seen it coming, the way she'd tense at my touch, the constant excuses, the way she'd sigh in annoyance whenever I tried to be affectionate, like my presence was nothing but an inconvenience. Babe, I'm just really tired. Can we not tonight? You're overthinking things. I swallowed those words like poison, forcing myself to believe she still loved me, that this was just a difficult time. But difficult times don't stretch for half a year. Difficult times don't make your wife look at you like a stranger. Difficult times don't make you feel like you're already gone. I had spent too long convincing myself things would get better, too long pretending not to see what was right in front of me. But that morning, as I lay beside her, staring at the woman who had once made me feel like I was the only man in the world, I realized something. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. Silently, I slid out of bed, my heart pounding, but my mind clearer than it had been in months. She didn't stir, didn't even notice. I stood there for a moment, watching her, feeling nothing but a quiet, cold certainty. It was time to take control. I walked out of the bedroom and sat down at the kitchen table, the first light of dawn creeping through the windows, casting long shadows across the room. This marriage was over, she just didn't know it yet, so I made a list. Not a list of ways to fix Usa, I had already tried that. This was a list of everything I needed to do to leave. Heavy checkmark, meet with a lawyer. Heavy checkmark, move my personal savings into a separate account. Heavy checkmark, gather evidence because something told me this wasn't just emotional distance. Heavy checkmark, find a new place. Heavy checkmark, make sure she realizes exactly what she lost. Because Laura had spent months pushing me away. Now she was about to learn what it felt like when I was truly gone. That morning, before she even woke up, I took the first steps. Wunai called the divorce lawyer. Wasn't filing yet, but I needed to know my rights, and what I learned only made my decision easier. I transferred half of our joint savings into a private account. She had never contributed to our finances the way I had, and I wasn't about to let her screw me over. I installed a small hidden camera in the living room, because if my gut was right, if this wasn't just emotional detachment, I needed proof. That night, I acted normal. I came home, kissed her on the cheek, asked about her day. Barely looked up from her phone. It was fine. No warmth. No effort. No guilt. And that's when I knew I wasn't crazy. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Something was going on, and I was about to find out exactly what. I lay in bed, listening to her slow, steady breathing, knowing that by morning everything could be different, that soon there would be no more doubts, only truth. Before the sun had fully risen, I slipped out of bed and went straight to the living room, my hands shaking as I retrieved the footage, plugged it into my laptop, and pressed play. At first, there was nothing, just a quiet, empty space of our home. And then movement. Laura. She appeared just after midnight, phone in hand, pacing. She looked anxious, excited, then something that made my stomach drop. She smiled, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. And it wasn't because of me. I fast-forwarded. Minutes passed, and a knock at the door. I felt my blood turn to ice. Laura rushed to open it, glancing around nervously. Then he walked in. A man I didn't recognize, tall, confident, dressed like he had just come from work, his shirt slightly undone at the collar. He smirked at her and she melted into his arms. I watched, horrified, as my wife kissed him like she'd been starving for it. Deep, desperate, hungry. She'd never kissed me like that anymore. I clenched my fists, my entire body trembling. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't hesitation. This was routine, which meant this wasn't the first time, not even close. I watched as they moved to the couch, whispering I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. Her body language told me everything, the way she touched his arm, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, the way she gazed at him like he was the only man in the world, like I had never existed. I skipped forward. I already knew where this was going. Minutes later, she led him to our bedroom. Our bed. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath ragged, nausea twisting my stomach into knots. This wasn't just infidelity, this was humiliation. She hadn't even bothered to hide it. She never thought I would find out. But now she was going to pay. I sat there in silence, listening to the sound of her stirring in the next room, completely unaware that her life was about to change forever. The moment my laptop clicked shut, a cold, calculated clarity settled over me. Angered, that was. Wasted energy. Not sadness, that was for people who still had hope. No. What I felt now was something far more potent. Purpose. Laura had made her choice. She had betrayed me, humiliated me, and done it all under the illusion that I would never find out. But she had made one crucial mistake. She assumed I was blind. She assumed I was weak. Sure, she never forgot the consequences of her deception. Confronting her outright would be too easy. Screaming, breaking things, demanding answers, none of it would be enough. No, this needed to be done right. She needed to feel it, to experience the slow, inevitable collapse of the lies she had built so carefully around herself, and when it was over, she would never see it coming. A smirk curled at the corner of my lips as a plan took shape in my mind. I had the footage, the evidence, but I needed something stronger. I needed to catch her in the act, to let her walk willingly into the noose I had prepared for her. So I set the trap. Laura had a routine, predictable in ways she probably thought were clever. Late-night tea, a shower, before sneaking out. Slipping from our bed only when she was sure I was asleep. And tonight, I would give her exactly what she expected. Dinner was the same as always. I kissed her on the cheek, made small talk, played the part of the trusting fool. I laughed at her stories, nodded in all the right places, let my hands brush against hers like nothing had changed. And when it was time for bed, I stretched, let out a contented sigh, and climbed under the covers. My breathing slowed, evened out, my body relaxed. I waited. Minutes passed. Then the inevitable, the subtle shift of sheets, the careful, deliberate way she slid out of bed, trying not to wake me. Through barely open eyes, I watched her silhouette move in the dim light. Phone in hand, fingers flying over the screen, the faint glow illuminating her face as she sent a message, no doubt to him. Then, just like always, she grabbed her purse, slipped on a jacket, and tiptoed out the door. The second the lock clicked shut, I moved. I was already dressed, already prepared. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and a spare device she had long forgotten she'd given me access to. A tracking app was still installed, a relic of the days when she claimed we had nothing to hide. I slipped out just behind her, staying far enough back to remain unseen. The parking lot was empty, the night air sharp against my skin. I watched as she slid into her car, adjusted her hair in the mirror, and pulled out. I let a few seconds pass before following my headlights off, my movements careful. She thought she was escaping into another night of stolen moments. She had no idea I was right behind her. The hotel she pulled into was familiar. The same place I had seen in the footage. The same place had met him before. I parked at a distance and watched as she checked her reflection one last time, smoothing her hair, touching up her lipstick. Then she stepped out, walking through the glass doors with the ease of someone who had done this a dozen times before. I exhaled slowly. There was no anger, no pain, just quiet. ice-cold satisfaction. Pulling out my phone, I opened our text thread, me. "Hey babe, can you grab some milk on your way home?" I sent it and waited. Through the lobby's large windows, I saw her pause just before reaching the front desk. Her phone lit up in her hand, her eyes skimmed a message, and for a second, I saw her hesitate. Then, just as quickly, she typed a response. "Laura, I'm just at Sarah's house for some wine. I'll grab it after." I almost laughed. The ease, the confidence, the sheer audacity of the lie. I slid out of my car, my movements slow and deliberate, and walked toward the entrance. Automatic. Doors parted silently, cool air washing over me as I stepped inside, and then her eyes met mine. For the first time in a long time, I saw something real in her expression. Not affection, not love. Panic. Her breath hitched. Her fingers tightened around the keycard she had just been handed. "Michael," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper, her face draining of color. I tilted my head slightly, a smirk playing at my lips. "Don't let me stop you," I said, my voice calm to calm. I gestured toward the elevator. "Go ahead. I'll delete." "Follow." She swallowed hard, her gaze darting around the room like a trapped animal. But there was no escape, no excuse, no lie that could save her now. And the best part? This was only the beginning, because I hadn't come alone. The hotel doors swung open behind me, and one by one, the spectators arrived. First, her parents, her mother, her father, their faces twisted in shock and fury. Then her younger sister, eyes wide, mouth slightly open in disbelief. Then came my friends, the people she had laughed with, shared dinners with, lied to so effortlessly. And finally, the last piece of the puzzle, the wife of the man she was about to meet. Yes, I had found her, the woman who had been just as deceived as I had Dan. Now she was here to witness the truth with her own eyes. I turned back to Laura just in time to see her take a shaky step backward, her grip on the keycard faltering. The plastic rectangle slipped from her fingers, hitting the polished floor with a quiet, hollow sound. She looked at me, her lips parting, her voice barely a croak. What have you done?" I exhaled a soft chuckle, crossing my arms. "I thought you might need some company," I said smoothly. After all, no one should ever spend a night like this alone. And as realization dawned on her face, as the weight of our crumbling world crashed down around her, I stood back and watched. Because tonight, she wasn't the one in control, I was. The hotel lobby had fallen into a thick, suffocating silence. The only sounds the distant murmurs of onlookers, whispers traveling like wildfire through the stunned crowd. Every pair of eyes was locked onto Asanta Harantu, the moment her carefully spun web of lies came crashing down. Laura stood frozen, her face drained of color, her hands trembling at her sides. She knew what was coming. I reached into my pocket, my fingers curling around the small USB drive that held the truth, the undeniable, inescapable truth. With a slow, deliberate motion, I pulled it out, letting the artificial glow of the chandelier above catch its sleek surface. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, my voice steady, firm, carrying through the lobby like a final judgment. A hush fell over the space as all attention settled on me. Then I turned toward the hotel receptionist, a young woman who had been awkwardly avoiding eye contact, her fingers nervously tapping against the desk. She flinched slightly as I addressed her directly. "Would you be so kind as to play this on the lobby TV?" I asked, my tone smooth, almost polite. She hesitated, her gaze darting between me and Laura, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. But before she could respond, "Stop." Laura shrieked, desperation cracking through her voice like thunder. "Mitch, please." She reached for me, her fingers outstretched in a frantic attempt to snatch the USB from my hand, but I was faster. I stepped back with ease, dodging her grasp like it was nothing. "No more lies, Laura," I said, my voice like steel. "It's time for everyone to see who you really are." The receptionist swallowed hard. Then, perhaps realizing the weight of the moment, the inevitability of what was about to unfold, reached out and took the drive. A single click. The sound of a port accepting the device. And then the screen flickered to life. And then there she was, Gasps rippled through the lobby like waves crashing onto a shore. On a massive screen, grainy security footage played mistakable and damning. Laura creeping through our bedroom in the dead of night. Laura unlocking the front door with practiced ease. Laura ushering him inside. Her mother staggered back, clutching her chest as if physically struck. Her father's hands curled into tight fists, his jaw set in unyielding fury. Her sister, who had once adored her, stared in open disbelief as if seeing a stranger for the first time. But it was his wife, the wife of the man Laura had betrayed me for, who had the most visceral reaction. She didn't scream. She didn't sob. She simply turned, locked eyes with Laura, and with venom so pure it could corrode steel, spat a single word. Laura crumbled right there in the middle of the hotel lobby. She collapsed onto her knees, her shoulders shaking with the force of her sobs. Tears poured down her face, her hands trembling as they reached for something, anything to hold on to. "Michael," she choked out, her voice broken, raw. I can explain." Didn't let her finish. "Duh, you don't get to explain," I said, my tone as cold as the marble beneath her knees. Slowly I turned to face her father, the man who had once beamed with pride whenever he spoke of his daughter. The man who had trusted me with her, who had welcomed me into his family. His expression was unreadable till he finally spoke. "Laura," he said, his voice low, filled with something far worse than anger. Disgust. She sniffled, her eyes wide, pleading, "Dad, please." But he simply shook his head, his gaze hard, unwavering. "No daughter of mine." And that was when I knew Laura wasn't just losing me. She was losing everything. Family. Her reputation. The life she had built on deceit. And when she finally looked back at me, her face streaked with tears, shattered by humiliation. I leaned down, my voice just above a whisper. "Enjoy your new life, Laura." Then, without another glance, I turned and walked away. I wasted no time. I packed my bags, finalized the paperwork, and filed for divorce immediately. No drawn-out discussions, no pathetic attempts at reconciliation. I was done. And Laura was about to learn what it truly meant to lose. Her father made good on his words. He cut her off completely, froze her accounts, canceled her credit cards, revoked her access to their home. Her mother and sister, they didn't fight for her, didn't console her. They simply let her go. Then came the storm she never saw coming. The woman whose husband she had stolen, the one who had stood in the hotel that night. Fury burning in her eyes made sure everyone knew who Laura really was. She called her workplace, her friends, her social circles. She ensured Laura's name became synonymous with betrayal. By the end of the week, Laura's life was in ruins. Her so-called friends stopped answering her calls. Her co-workers avoided her like a plague. She lost her job, her stability, her standing, the man she had sacrificed everything for, the moment his wife filed for divorce. Taking half of everything he owned and exposing the fraud he was, he dropped Laura like a bad habit. She wasn't fun anymore. She wasn't exciting. She was a liability. And suddenly, she had no one, no family, no friends, no lover, which was why one evening, when I heard an unexpected knock at my door, I already knew who it was before I even opened it. Laura stood there, ghost of her former self. Her once pristine hair was tangled, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. She looked utterly defeated. She tried to smile, though it barely reached her lips. "Hey, Michael," she whispered. I stared at her, unmoved. "What do you want?" She swallowed hard, shifting on her feet. I wanted to see you. I wanted to talk." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Talk," I repeated, amusement laced in my voice. What could we possibly have to talk about? Her lower lip trembled. "I miss you," she said softly. I almost laughed. She missed me now after months of lying, cheating, treating me like a backup plan. Now, when no one else wanted her now, she missed me. I let the silence stretch, watching as she fidgeted under my gaze. "I made a mistake," she admitted, her voice shaking. "I took you for granted. But you and we had something real, Michael. We can have it again. I can change. I swear." I tilted my head, studying her. So let me get this straight, I said slowly. You threw me away for another man, humiliated me, made me feel like I wasn't enough, and now that your life has fallen apart, you think you can just come back? A tear slipped down her cheek. Please, she whispered. Just give me a chance. I took a slow step forward, lowering my voice. You don't miss me, Laura, I said coldly. You miss the comfort, the stability. You miss having someone who actually cared about you. She sucked in a sharp breath, visibly recoiling. You, I continued, are nothing to me now. Her face crumbled. And with that, I did what I should have done months ago. I closed the door in her face. I never looked back.